I think that the young players are more prepared than they were, 20 years ago for a variety of reasons. Number one, information and knowledge. Just being able to watch, games all the time, and you have every country has identifies the young players, the U16, U17 tournaments, world tournaments, U18s, U20s. So I just think the younger players. Then you have player development. Every organization has got player development departments. Uh, so I think I know that agents they also prior to the draft a year or two earlier take their players somewhere to a development camp. So I just think that the players are much more prepared now than they were 20 years ago. First off, it's a big loss. I mean, you're talking about our number one defenseman, runs the power play, on the first pair, plays against the other team's best players, plays 22 to 24 minutes a night. It's hard to replace those types of people. So, on the long term, we've got a lot of young defensemen. I think over the next couple of years, Bouchard, Samarukov's playing really well in the KHL, with CSKA, Goldberg, the development there. Jones. We've got some young defensemen on the long term. On the short term, heading into 2021, obviously it's a massive. It would be a big loss not to have Clef on our team. Certainly we've got some veteran guys there. On left defense, Darnell Nurse, Chris Russell. The development of Caleb Jones. So, I'll explore free agency on the weekend. I'll be talking to JP Barry here over the next 2 or 3 days, and ultimately we'll make some decisions on how we're going to proceed on Friday in the next couple of days. Well, I know where you're going. The question is, if he needs it, why doesn't he have surgery and get it? Why wait 2 months? And you've lost 2 months. And if it was that easy, it would be we would make those decisions, or he would make those decisions. It's not that easy. I think it's not. I don't know if he plays with some pain, and he needs to determine. Obviously in February we shut him down for, I think he missed 9 games. He went to see a specialist, a shoulder specialist. And again, it's not cut and dried. It's not just simple that you do have surgery or you don't have surgery. It's not that simple. So I think that Clef needs to make a decision based upon the information that he's getting, number one, from his body, and number two, from the doctors. I know he's seen a couple of shoulder people as to how he wants to proceed. In past years, he's obviously season has ended, and there's been a long, an off season for it to get better, and he comes back and he plays. But as he goes forward each year, you're getting the body's another year older. Your body's beat up or battered up a little bit more. So I think that he has to decide how he wants to proceed. And again, I certainly, from the club's perspective, from the team's perspective, would you like to have an answer? Yeah, but I also think I got to respect that this is number one, he's an important player on the team, but he's also a person that has to make a decision that is going to be very important to him going forward in his life. So I have to respect that. I guess I would say to you, based upon, if you had to handicap it today, I don't see us drafting a defenseman. Given all the defensemen that we've got. But if we've got somebody, we've got our list, Tyler Wright's been here since last Wednesday, our chief scout, Bob Green. They've been at it every day with Justin Mahi on analytics and looking at tape and going over their lists, and had Zoom calls with our scouts. they're going to have their, ranking 1 to 14. If we got a defenseman high on our list and he slides to 14, then we'll make that decision as we start getting to 11 and 12. We're having those conversations yesterday and today and tomorrow morning. But I would see us drafting, I would see us not drafting a defenseman if you handicapped it. What are we looking for? I think, you obviously when you're picking 14, you're looking for some upside potential. Where do you think that they can cap out? Skating, hockey sense, competitiveness. If you're, what do they bring? Can they score? Do they check? Can they center playmaking, center iceman? But I compete, skate. I don't think. You look at Tampa Bay. My idea in team building is you like to, on the back end, you'd like to have some size, but out of 7 defensemen, you can have a couple of what you would call undersized defensemen, but you do need some length on the back end. There's situations during a season, matchups, penalty killing, protecting a 1-goal lead in a game where the more length, the size to box out, it's important in winning, but certainly you need some undersized defensemen that can transport the puck and zip the puck up. And I think up front, it's about you need some size, but I don't think you need to have 14 forwards that are all big. You want competitive people. You need lots of different dimensions when you build a hockey team. Well, I mean, personally, 30 teams. I can't tell you I've talked to 30, but I've probably talked to 25 out of the 30 teams in your own division that you're in the same spot. You're competing. You touch base, but for the most part, it's usually not a fit. What's the chatter like? I think there's lots of chatter, lots of talk. I'm going to talk to a number of managers again today and tomorrow morning, and then I think once we get to, I think that we're in an unknown here, I think, but historically the draft weekend, now this is Tuesday, Wednesday, but the draft weekend, which is at the end of June, Friday, Saturday, whatever trades you got usually come out, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So today, tomorrow, Wednesday, I think would be sort of the expectation that there's going to be some trades, maybe Thursday. And then once you get into free agency on Friday, people are trying to fill their needs with free agency versus trades. So I think I would expect that whatever trades will happen in the league would happen between today and Thursday. And then you'd go into Friday, and I think, free agency will go on, and then maybe somewhere after that, if somebody has missed out on filling a need, maybe there's going to be some trades again down the road, because with the flat cap, as you mentioned, I know that there's many teams are challenged, and some teams are looking to get down and under. We don't have to get down and under, but for the most part on a trade, we're probably dollar in, dollar out thereabouts. So that's my expectations over the next 10 days. Well, I mean, obviously the revenues, I mean, it's, I think you're talking about, the competitiveness of the NHL. And I think, certainly the revenues in escrow, I'm dealing with a cap. So my expectations are the cap are going to be 81.5 this year, and probably next year, and maybe the year after. And I don't know, maybe the year after, but basically a flat cap for the foreseeable future. It's an unknown for everybody. I think that's why you have all these, director of pro scouting, Archie Henderson, came in to town here on Saturday, met with him yesterday for a few hours. Last week we had a Zoom call for, I think, Monday to Friday with all our pro scouts. Dave Tippett was on. We had our Zoom call with our pro scouts in May. That's why you do all the preparation. And that's why you work the phones. And, a question earlier was about, trading up or trading back. Those decisions have been discussed in advance, so that when the draft is ongoing tomorrow and the phone rings and somebody calls and wants to, the odd call is a surprise, but most of those calls have been discussed in advance and saying, if something's there, would you do this and what's it going to take? So obviously we've got just a few minutes when we make our pick. So it's the same thing heading into free agency. You do all your work, you do all your planning, you do all your research, and you're talking and internal talking. And then when it comes time to make a decision, all the information you've gathered, your instincts, for me, I guess my experience ultimately leads you to making a decision. It's supply and demand. I think the demand would, I think lots of players are going to do short-term deals. But I think there are going to be some long-term deals. Again, it's depending on, those people that are in demand on Friday are going to, and have multiple teams after them, are going to be able to use that leverage, I guess, to get some length to their contract. But then I think that, I would expect those contracts would probably be Friday, Saturday. There's no interview period now, so last year there was an 8-day interview period, and I think that as you got to when the bell struck, there was just a lot of deals announced. Well, in some cases now players are going to want to take a little bit of time to talk to some teams. So I would expect that there's a possibility free agency might move a little slower. I would expect that there's going to be some long-term deals. Again, it's an 81.5 cap. You know the cap, and if you can fit the cap number in, and you want the player on free agency, if you want to land a player and he's in demand, you got to do one of two things, or a few things. Number one, probably got to give longer term than you want, or you got to give a higher cap than you want. Or if you've got a team that's ready to, does somebody want to go back home and play in front of their family and friends? Do they want to play in a team that they think is a really odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup, and they want to have a chance to win the Stanley Cup? But basically, there's a few things that need to happen on free agency, and longer term than you'd like, and maybe a higher cap than you'd like if you want to add the player, are part of that process. Well, I mean, obviously these guys, one of the things that we've done here prior to today was, I think we've got, I don't know, 10 or 15 players playing in Europe. So we got them, we found places for Bouchard's playing in Europe, and Broberg's in Europe, and Samorukov and Benson and McLeod. And so, now we're gonna acquire some players through the draft. I would think that the 14th pick in the draft now, whether, I don't know if he's a European, he might be playing. If we draft a European, he might be already playing. If he's a North American, whether he's in college or in junior, we'll assess once we make the pick, in talking to his agent, and how we go forward. So I mean, we're all in a real unknown. So let's see who we pick. Let's see where he's from. If we pick a European, like I said, he's probably playing in the league. And if we pick a North American, then when are the junior leagues going to start? When are the colleges going to start? We'll have to decide that on the fly. The goal for 2021 is to build a team that we think is good enough on opening day if everything goes good, and you got some things don't go good, but you got enough depth built in that you can play your way into a playoffs. And I thought, the Chicago series, some of these players here played in the Anaheim series in San Jose 3 years ago, and then they missed for a couple. But you want to be in the playoffs every year. So we're going to try to make some moves to make. You can't guarantee anything. Last year, a year ago, the two teams that were number one seed in the West and number one seed in the East. In the first round of the playoffs combined, they won one playoff game. It was Calgary and Tampa Bay, and they're out. So there are no guarantees. You can't build a team that you just know is going to win the Stanley Cup. You got to play your way into the tournament, and you got to stick with it. And you got to learn from your experiences, and then you make tweaks to your team. And we're going to try to make some tweaks here over the next during this off season. And some of the tweaks, some of the development has to be internal. It's got to be some young people that grow on your team, that come through the system, make your team. That was Yamamoto last year, and Bear, and Caleb Jones is in there. And can we have one or two of these kids, young players, start to push their way onto our team? And then where do Bear and Jones and Yamamoto go, along with whatever trades or free agent signings we do, and keep trying to build the program and stick with it. So I don't look at it like, obviously we got to win the Stanley Cup in 2021. We got to get in the tournament. We got to play our way over an 82 game schedule, or however long the schedule is. We got to play our way into the Stanley Cup playoffs, and then you try to win that series. And every time you win a series, it gets harder and harder and harder, because you're going from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2. So certainly I understand. We've got some young people here that are incredibly talented. Some of the best young players in the game. I thought we made good progress last year. The previous year they were 27th in overall points. This year we went to 12th in overall points. We've had this on past calls. Now, if you want to hang on to 12th, we don't want to fall backwards. And every time you try to go another little, from 12th to 10th to 8th to 6th, it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. So, but part of that's internal. Part of that is experience of being in those games and those playoff series, and that's why the goal for me in 2021 is to play our way into the playoffs and try again. It appears that there's going to be a lot of goalie movement between now and this time next week and the next week. There's some teams that have signed some goalies, and they've calls them coming. Teams are looking to trade some goalies. There's looks like there's going to be goalies on the unrestricted free agent market. So I would anticipate that we're going to end up with a goalie. We are going to end up with a goalie. I'm going to sign somebody. And maybe a number 3 as well. So we are going to have a goalie in place in the next week. I would anticipate through free agency. It's not like we're on a flat cap and 20 other teams have got this. They got 10 more million to spend. I mean, you just got to go to cap friendly, make and go. You can go team by team by team and look at the players that teams have to sign, restricteds, and then so it's going to have a huge impact, but it's going to have a huge impact on many teams that we're competing against. Some teams, and then you got to, some teams might have not a cap. Maybe they might have a budget. Some teams might be in a situation where it's not a cap, it's not a budget, but they want to rebuild and they want to go in they want to make some decisions. So I think that we're tight, but there's lots of teams like us. Nuge is a really important player on our team. My goal is hopefully to have Nuge here for a long time. Find a solution on an extension. Whether it takes this week or whether we go into the season and he's on the last year of a contract and deal with it down the road. I've had some conversations with his agent. There's so many unknowns. Flat cap. How long is it going to be a flat cap? When's it going to start to move? So there's a lot of unknown, but certainly he's a priority. He's a really good player. He's a really important player. He's good defensively. He can play center. But he also is very comfortable on left wing. He can play on a left wing on Connor's line. He can play on a left wing with Leon. You can move Leon up and play with Connor, and he can go into the 2-hole. He's versatile. He's an important player for us. Part of the excitement of draft day is, you're at all those tables and you've got all the organizations and the general managers, and you can, you've got a phone at your desk, and you can wander the floor, and you bump into people, and bumping into people creates talk, or you can go over and you can carry on a conversation. So now you got to be, so it's going to be different. Obviously, I know the NHL is going to do everything they can to try to make the day as special as they can for the young players that are going to be selected. It's a great day. The players have been, and their families have been thinking about this day for, probably a number of years, as they've, gone through bantam drafts and midgets and played junior hockey and college hockey and played in Europe. So hopefully we can make this a special day for the young players and their families. And, but certainly it's going to be much different, not being, having everybody in one location.